Hello, I'm Reggie Turner, and I'm here with Andy Overton. The FlipSide starts right now.
Tell me when you're rolling. Recording. Reggie, looking this way in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to the show. Tonight we welcome current president of the Hagerstown Aviation Museum, John Seburn. So let's get started. John, first and foremost, for those that don't know much about the Aviation Museum, tell us about the museum itself.
Well, the museum, I could even back up a little farther if you want me to. Why the museum came to be.
Sure.
And for 80 to 100 years, we've had aviation manufacturing in Hagerstown. And through that time, there were over 10,000 airplanes that were built, 50,000 people worked in the industry over that time. And so around 1995, we had a Fairchild homecoming and air show out at the Hagerstown Regional Airport. And a lot of the workers who used to work with Fairchild, they came back. A lot of the Fairchild airplanes came back. And we had a small tea hangar set up as like a little museum with pictures and films running and models and things. People would walk through and they said, well, this must be the museum. And we said, well, no, it's just our stuff. You know, it's our collections of things. And so out of that weekend, the museum grew. So that was 1995. 96, we had our first board meeting. So after 25 years of collecting memorabilia, airplanes, all the things that help tell the stories of aviation history in Hagerstown, the one thing we didn't have was an actual home for the museum. So it just so happened that the old Fairchild flight test hangar, we call it the 1943 Fairchild flight test hangar, otherwise known as the dome hangar because it has an arched roof. And if anyone's been out to the airport, they've probably seen it sitting. It's out in the middle of the airfield over where the old Fairchild buildings are. It had been sitting empty for 10 years. Northrop Grumman was the last company that used that. And when they moved out, nobody else moved in. So not this summer, summer of 19, the whole property took on new owners who decided they want to revitalize that property and have companies come in. And so they started fixing it up and renting out spaces to different like warehouse spaces to companies. And the old hangar is still set on the end of the row of buildings. And ever since we started the museum, we always dreamed of being in the original Fairchild hangar. So the owners are very, very supportive of what we're doing. It's Michael Langer and Ellie Tabak, who are from New York City. And they loved it. They love tourism. They love creating attractions. So they looked at helping us get in there as an improvement to their property, for one thing. It gives the museum a home, which they were very excited to help do that. It still doesn't come cheap, though, but that's something we'll be working on. So it needs some renovations. Had some roof leaks, frozen pipes, things like that. So typical to an old building from 75 years ago that's been sitting for a while. It has all those problems. So we're in the process of working on that right now. And so we're very excited about it. Sort of the excitement is that all these years we worked out of tea hangars, we worked out of any warehouse space that we could. In lieu of having a building, we'd hold outdoor events. So every year we had maybe 5 or 6 major events at the airport. Bring all the planes out, all of the artifacts. We also gave rides in our PT-19 Fairchild trainers, which is open cockpit, and people just love that. So we've been basically an outdoor museum for the last 25 years, and so now we'll actually have a place that's be a year-round facility. So anyway, that's a short story.
Excellent. Andy?
Yeah, so I'm really curious how you have collected all of these awesome memorabilia over the years. You said at first that it's just kind of a collection that had been within, you know, the confines of the airport or whatnot, and now you're putting this together as a curated museum exhibit or whatnot. Where'd you get all the stuff? Is it just things that were left there, or were people saying, hey, I need to house this here? Where'd it come from?
Well, there weren't too many things actually left there, unfortunately. But there are several people in the community, Curtis Myers, Kent Mitchell, who were real historians and collectors of our local aviation history. Fairchild, Kreider, Reisner, the different companies that were here. And they were really the ones who got the collection started. It wasn't until 1999 that we got our first real airplane. And that was a 1928 Kreider Reisner KR-31 biplane. And the interesting thing with that is, at the time, Dick Henson, who the airport's named after, he was on our board, and he was 85 at the time, I think. And that's what he learned to fly in. He started Henson Aviation with the KR-31. And he said, if we can ever find one, you know, we need to get one for the museum. So 1998, 99, we heard of a fellow in York, Pennsylvania who had just restored one of these airplanes. So Dick Henson talked to him, and together they donated the plane to the museum. So that was our very first airplane. And then about 2004 or 5, I think we only had the one airplane for that time. The Fairchild C-82 was a large cargo plane. It was the first big large cargo plane Fairchild built during World War II. And we knew there was one of those left in the world that could still fly, and it was in Wyoming. And the company that had it went bankrupt. There was an auction. We had a big fundraiser for like 4 weeks, and whatever we could raise in 4 weeks, we took to the auction, and we ended up getting the C-82.
No way.
And it was one of those things where, you know, the auctioneer was like, okay, it's going home to Hagerstown. When we went, and Curtis Myers and I look at each other like,
We just bought an airplane.
we just bought a giant old airplane. How do we get it home to Hagerstown?
Well, it could get in the air, right? Or no?
Well, fortunately, at this is in Graybull, Wyoming. The company that had worked on all those airplanes, the guys were all still there, the mechanics and everybody who knew those airplanes.
Really?
So we hired them to get it ready to fly, and then we did a ferry flight from Graybull, Wyoming to Hagerstown in 2006.
That's brilliant.
And that was the very last flight of a Fairchild C-82. When it touched the runway here, we decided we don't ever want to take a chance with it and fly it again. But,
Sure.
so that was the first of the big planes. And then we started getting like the C-119 flying boxcar, C-123 was built in the 50s. So, and then during that time too, we got a lot of the smaller planes, the PT-19 trainers. And for the most part, I mean, they've all been donated by their owners to the museum, except for the one at the auction and maybe one or two others that the owner worked with us quite a bit. But
the bottom line is you bought an airplane, which I
bought
find, I
we
don't think
bought
I'll
an
ever say
airplane.
that in my life, that, hey, I bought an airplane.
Yes.
very neat.
And so we were dreaming big back then.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
I mean, one time we would have been happy just with a propeller off of a Fairchild plane. And now
Bought the whole darn thing.
Now we have 23 different airplanes,
Wow.
and we have, say, four big cargo planes that were built here. And the only thing that we don't have yet was the Fairchild A-10 Warthog. And they're still using those in the Air Force. So when the day comes that those are retired, we'll probably get one of those at that time. But
Well, folks, listen, if you have this plane, it looks like we have a great spot for you here in Hagerstown.
so that's really the only plane missing out of the collection is the A-10. So anyway, that's sort of and then along with that, we have a lot of folks who their grandparents die or someone dies in the family and they're cleaning out the house and we get a call, well, we have all this stuff from Fairchild in the closet we found, and we were just going to throw it out, but we thought maybe you folks would like it. So of course we always do, and so a lot of it comes that way.
Interesting.
And there's so many families in the community who had somebody who had worked there over the years, and I mean that's my grandfather worked there from 41 to 66, so I grew up hearing all the stories of building airplanes, and I guess it intrigued me enough that here I am today trying to tell that story.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So you've talked about Fairchild. Can you talk a little bit more about that company and its significance to our community, and also some of the aviation pioneers of Washington County?
Well, I'd say the first pioneer was Giuseppe Belanca, and he came over from Italy, and he built an airplane in 1916 in the old Pope building on Pope Avenue, and they only built a handful of these. They were going to be trainers for pilots in World War I. Well, World War I ends, and they don't need these trainers anymore, so they sell off what they have, and he moves on, and then he made his own own a legacy in aviation history building airplanes. Who was it? Reisner worked for Blanca, and so Kreider and Reisner got together in the 20s, and they started building airplanes. And they were a dealer for Waco airplanes, and they felt they could build a better airplane. So they built the Kreider Reisner 31 that we were talking about, and they sold that. And then at the end of the 1920s, Sherman Fairchild was already building planes up in Long Island, New York, and he knew Kreider Reisner. He really liked the planes they built. So around the time of the stock market crash, he left New York, came to Hagerstown. He bought a controlling interest in Kreider Reisner, and at that time, he put money into building the first factory building on Pennsylvania Avenue, and we call it Fairchild Plant 1, but it's right behind the Boys and Girls Club on Pennsylvania Avenue, the big old building, and so that was the first Fairchild factory of any size. So when Sherman came to town, that started changing things, and then they came out with different models during the Great Depression for every man's airplane that you could afford to fly, and we actually have those in the collection. Fairchild 22, Fairchild 24 from the 1930s, and then when World War II came along, or right before World War II, we were already supplying airplanes and equipment to the British and the Allies. So Fairchild got a contract to start building their training plane to train Allied pilots, those who flew in the Battle of Britain and the RAF and all that. Some learned how to fly in Fairchild planes, and so then during the war, they built about over 5,000 PT-19s here in Hagerstown. And the unique thing with Hagerstown was they had something called the Hagerstown system, where there wasn't enough factory space, because when December 7th happened, the next day they needed like 3,000 airplanes, 3,000 employees all at once. So they brought in like Moeller Pipe Organ, Foltz Manufacturing. Some of the companies are still with us today, but there was 20 to 30 different companies around Hagerstown that built parts and pieces for the PT-19 trainer, and then all those pieces would end up at the factory, and then they'd assemble it and fly it at the airport. So that was a kind of a unique thing that other communities used as a model for their manufacturing. So that's how we could build so many airplanes so fast, because everybody was building airplanes. So that brings us up to like in World War II. At that time, then the Air Force was using DC-3s and commercial airliners as cargo planes. And they wanted something that they could open up a door and drive vehicles in and out easily. And you would think they would have had something like that. So Fairchild came up with the C-82 that we were just talking about. And it has these big doors in the back that you can open up, put ramps down, and you can drive Jeeps and trucks and things in and out. It's also used for paratroopers. They can jump out the back. So that's when Fairchild got in the big airplane business. And it was a top secret project. It was just called the cargo plane, and didn't have a designation or anything. And we found out that the dome hangar itself was built big enough you could put 2 of these inside. And even the people working there weren't quite sure what they were building, And so in 1944, they had the first flight of the C-82. And then the plan was for the invasion of Japan. They already had the Normandy invasion. They were sure they would have to invade Japan at the end of the war. And they didn't know anything about the atomic bomb. So the Air Force wanted C-82s as fast as they could build them. So Fairchild was cranking out C-82s to fly supplies into Japan. The atomic bomb is dropped, the war ends. All the other airplane companies come to a screeching halt. Fairchild keeps building the C-82. It was one of the only companies that kept building airplanes after the war, because the Air Force still wanted that cargo capacity that the C-82 could have. So anyway, there's a lot more after that, but there's a lot of stories there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, obviously, you have the project coming up of getting the museum complete. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about what that project entails and what does success look like for that project?
Well, I think as far as success, I think over the years we've had a lot of small steps, some really big steps as we've been going along. I think timing-wise, the fact that this came along right when it did, because we had run out of space, we had all these different planes and artifacts and different things. So timing-wise, it worked out really good. Not so much with COVID and all the everything related to that, but hopefully when that's over, we can all get back to doing our normal things and tourism and everything else. But yeah, our first goal, or we call it our phase 1 goal, is to renovate the hangar and the front office area and different rooms in there up to the point where we can have the public come in. Probably have, of course, a gift shop, like a orientation room where you run the video and learn about what you're about to see. Some walkthroughs, small displays, display cases, those things. And then from there, you walk out into the hangar, which is impressive when you walk out. It's this giant arched roof, and all the planes are in there. So that's what the phase 1 goal is. And then it also has a second floor that has a lot of offices and different rooms for our archives and research and doing all the other museum things that you do. There's also room for like a visitor center, like right off 81 right there.
Right.
And we have a lot of people who are already stopping in thinking we're open. And they see us on the website and hear about it. So there'd be a room in there for the Tourist Information Center or something like that too. And we already have, in the past we've done a lot of school groups from Head Start to senior citizen bus tours, and that was just when everything was sitting outside. We did that. So when all that starts going on again, hopefully we can be open and up and running in time to sort of catch the wave of everybody wanting to get out and go somewhere.
We're going to take a break there, and we'll be right back with more with John Seburn. Tonight, we welcome current president of the Hagerstown Aviation Museum, John Seburn. Excellent. Andy.
So I am not a big plane person, other than to say I'm terribly impressed by all of them, right? But I don't know one from the other.
Right.
But if I was a plane aficionado, the kind of the girl or guy who delves into this, probably a lot like you, what would I be most impressed with when it comes to the planes that you have? Where am I going first to see the most unique or awesome thing in this museum when it opens?
Well, I think overall the collection that we have is very unique in that all the planes we have were actually built in Hagerstown.
Okay.
So the collection itself, for airplane enthusiasts, they find that interesting.
Okay.
And even with the National Air and Space Museum, we have a lot of planes they don't even have.
Really?
So and we have some friends down there, and they say, well, when you guys get open, we'll send, when people learn about Fairchild, we'll say, go to Hagerstown, go to the museum.
That's great.
So I don't know that there's only one plane, like you were asking. Probably the Fairchild PT-19 World War II time period was the most famous one. And what's unique with Fairchild, a lot of the planes they were sort of the workhorses and the underdogs, and the ones that didn't get out, they weren't the glory planes.
Sure.
And even like the A-10, it had a job to do, and it does it well, but it's not fast and sleek and everything else. But Fairchild seemed to come up with those kind of designs for whatever was needed at the time. But and the fact that we have, three or four planes, two we do fly, a couple more could be flying, and I'll throw this in too. The other interesting thing is when families come out to our events, they're talking about the families in the community. Sometimes I overhear the parents saying to the kids, and they're in the big cargo planes looking around, and they say, well, now this plane, your grandpa and grandpa helped build this airplane. And we even hear stories where when they met building airplanes.
Oh, wow.
And so you hear all kinds of stories, but when you hear those kind of things, it's like, okay, this is why we do this.
Sure.
This is almost brings tears to your eyes.
Yeah. Will you be able to share some of those stories in the museum too?
Oh yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep.
So in this area, what would be the closest similar museum that would be close to what you're trying to achieve?
Well, the closest one is the National Air and Space Museum, which is the ultimate aviation museum in the world, really. And they have their site downtown and out at Dulles at the Varhazy Center. Size-wise, there's a museum in Reading, Pennsylvania, Mid-Atlantic Air Museum, and they have a lot of World War II planes. They have a big event every year. But for what we're doing, there really isn't any other museum like what we're doing, especially that it's in an original World War II hangar, which a lot of museums are in a big metal building or something in that way. So the collection's unique, the building is unique, and even I'm thinking headed west, there's no museum. Well, there's none until you get to Dayton, Ohio, almost, to the Air Force Museum, which we also find there are a lot of people who just they make their vacation trip going to aviation museums, and they've showed up in Hagerstown, this was over the years, at our mailbox address, because they would Google our address,
Sure.
and it's a gate at the airport, Oak Springs Road, and they would show up there like wondering where the museum is. So we'd get a call or a message or something, and so there were already people like trying to come to the museum. And some of the people we talked to at that time, they told us that story. They said, well, we were there in Space Museum, we're going out to Dayton to the Air Force Museum, and you're right on the way, and we just thought we'd stop in. So hopefully that'll still be the case when we get up and running. But the thing right now is, and we were talking earlier, is the raising the funds to do the renovation. The other part of this is it's a lease, but it also has an option to buy, which is the key to this whole thing. Without that, we probably couldn't have signed the lease. So this coming spring, we're going to start a capital campaign to purchase the hangar and the property that it's sitting on there, and to truly make it the permanent home of. It's something where we can't evict ourselves then, or whatever. So that'll be a much bigger fundraising campaign for that. But right now we're shooting for 100,000 to maybe 200 to really fix it up pretty nice. It already has a new roof. The new owner put a new roof on it, which is great. Would this be a time to tell about this?
Yeah.
Sure.
We just sent this out in the mail just recently. This is our new Pegasus flyer, and it tells all about the museum, the dome hangar project. There's also a place inside you can send a donation in if you'd like. This will also be as a PDF on our website at HagerstownAviationMuseum.org. So if anybody would like to help out or want more information, that would be a way you could do that.
Excellent. Andy.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about like the economic drivers that this may bring the county in this area? If people are already stopping by before this is fully realized, what is your visitor rate looking like? What are you expecting? What are you hoping for? And how is that, from your eyes, going to impact, obviously, our economic development here in the county and in the area?
Well, over the years, we've researched a lot of other aviation museums. And there's even a conference just for aviation museums that we used to attend. And what we found out was that aviation museums are some of the most attended museums in the world.
Wow.
Like Air and Space Museum, there's one in China, I think, because you had to go to it. I think that was the thing in China. But Air and Space was one of the most visited museums.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that sort of, applies to what we're doing in a smaller way. But I think there's still a mystery of flight and aviation and flying, and some of that mystique I think is still there. As far as the economic impact, we worked with Tom Reifert in the past and Dan Sped now with the CVB, and we've seen different studies and things. We haven't had one done just for this, but based on other ones, I mean, it's something that would have a high economic impact. Just the people coming off 81, we already have Loves there, and they get a bite to eat, or runways, or wherever else, a lot of places to eat around there. So the county, we've been looking for more tourist attractions that are unique, that not only tell the local story, but we actually have members from all over the country.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just a local museum in a sense, because the airplanes, after they were built, they flew off and were involved in events all around the world. Then even people who work there, they moved to other companies around the country and things. So So it's the kind of thing that it's hard to say exactly what the impact will be, but based on other experience, there should be a real positive impact. I'll say it that way.
I think so too.
Now, at the completion of phase one, do you have a sense of how many jobs you will create?
Well, we think for like a museum of this size, I mean, I'd say 4 or 5, 6, something in there. Hopefully we'll have also a lot of volunteers. We already have a lot of volunteers that help out. But when it's an open every day or regular schedule, you'll have to have somebody for the gift shop and the director and all that. So I think there's something like this, maybe not so much how many jobs are in here, but even when we have events, we've had some events at the airport that bring like 7, 8, 9,000 people who come out to the airport. So they bring a lot of economic impact, is what you're saying. And even we've had ever since, well, we signed the lease October 1st, we had our last event October 4th, and we had an event with the hangar doors open. So we actually had our first event there back in October. And I mean, there are a lot of people came out. Some just came out just to see the hangar because they'd never been in it. They were always curious. But this will allow us to have more events and larger events. What's really neat when you open the hangar door, I mean, it's almost like a cathedral inside with that arched roof. And when you play music in there, it's like we need to get the Maryland Symphony in here and play a couple tunes or something. So anyway, but yeah, that's I think when the tourism gets back in operation and people are traveling and spending money again, right now everything's sort of slow and tight.
Yeah, of course.
Now, when it comes to also our local government, the city and the county, do you have any interest or any solid commitments for them in your phase one?
Well, everyone has. I mean, they've always been very supportive, and especially CVB, helping to promote our events and activities. I don't know. We don't have anything committed at the moment. We probably see that more maybe in the capital campaign and of it in the spring and next summer. But right now we're just trying to come up with the funds just to get the doors open and get it rolling.
The other thing I thought is, since this is the original hangar, has there been any grants you've went after in regards to historic preservation?
Well, there are grants like that, and now that we have the lease for it and are working toward buying it, we'll pursue those. I mean, we've studied that for years, and we have friends who are well versed in all these different types of grants for historic preservation and things. And but until we actually had it, you couldn't really
you couldn't go after it until you actually had site control.
Right, that's always been our challenge in a sense. But yeah, we've gotten the let's say the Community Foundation has the Mary Kay Bowman Fund, and we get money from that every year. It helps with restoring an airplane or many of the projects, and that'll be one that we'll ask for dome hanger help this coming spring. We also have the Delaplane Foundation over in Frederick. They've helped us out for a lot of years now, and and then there's also the Henson Foundation in Salisbury and some other ones that we'll be approaching as we get to the larger money ask. So that's it'll be a challenge. But
Yes.
And right now it is how is it now? Asking money in this time that we're in for something that isn't human services or something else. It may not be the best time, but we thought, well, we just need to start putting it out there, and we've already had a lot of donations come in, which is great. And so, yeah, anything anybody can do to help make it happen, they'll be preserving local aviation history for future generations.
And so, tell our viewers exactly how the community can help.
Okay. Well, like I was saying with the flyer here, you can go on our website, and there's a PDF of this on there. There's a button on the home page where you can donate right to the Dome Hangar project. You can send a check in. We do PayPal. We do all the different ways of receiving money. Also on the website, it shows all the different airplanes and has a lot of pictures of each one. And we'll also have a calendar of events once we get events going again.
Sure.
So Also, if anybody out there loves doing, well, like carpentry, drywall work, painting, we're going to have a lot of that to do in the office areas where the water damage was. We already took out the old drywall and we're cleaning that up now. But if anybody likes to, help in that way, that would be a big help. Or even donations of drywall or materials, Lowe's, Home Depot, or somebody, that would be a big help.
And from a tax advantage standpoint, the organization is a 501c3, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Any questions you have further? Anna?
No, I'm impressed, and I'm excited. I had no idea. I figure out that I learned something a little bit new about this area every time we have new guests on, so I'm so happy that you were here. And I'm excited for these doors to open. Yeah, that sounds absolutely wonderful.
Before we let you go on this segment, what's your projections of when phase 1 will be completed? I mean, obviously it's all about the dollars, right?
Well, it's about the dollars, and there may be different, what's the least we can do to get the door open thing, but we still would like to make it nice for everybody. And but I mean, we're really hoping for spring or early summer when the weather warms up again. That's what the goal is right at the moment here. So if we keep working at it, I think we'll make it.
Okay. Well, excellent. I told you already have one new guest that's going to come. My youngest daughter was asking about that. So I'm going to have to send her to the website so she can do her research.
Yes, that'd be
So
great.
it was great having you. Appreciate that. And we'll be right back after the break with our Fast Five. Stay with us. Welcome to the Fast Five, where our 3 panelists talk about 5 topics in 10 short minutes. First up, Hogan announces new measures to address the uptick in COVID-related hospitalizations. It looks like our state has seen a 51% increase of COVID hospitalizations over the past 2 weeks. Andy, what say you?
At least we're doing something. I mean, there's so many states around here who aren't calling for any other kind of measures. I don't know if I'm a fan or not. I wouldn't go that far, but this is the right move. We need to start doing something now so that we don't continue on this path. I think this is an uptick from people standing in line at election booths. I think this is an uptick from family vacations, and we got to do something now. I'm glad something's happening. We got to bring that down.
Terrence.
Same. It's reactive to the point where it'd be great if we kind of planned a little bit more for this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, good point.
But so it's reactive in that standpoint, but again, as Andy mentioned, it's very proactive compared to what we're seeing nationwide. So that's good that's happening and being prepared. We missed out on PPEs earlier this year. Now we're just missing out on people to as one of our greatest resources in our hospital. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, obviously we're seeing an uptick around the nation, but some of our bordering counties, I know that Allegheny County is having exploding rates, and then Mineral County in West Virginia is also having some serious issues. So obviously we have to do something, and with Hogan urging the colleges and universities to push out those students to get them into the field, we have to have an all hands on deck approach. Second topic. Hogan and Frosch asked Biden's team for more stimulus funding. It is really unbelievable to me that we wasn't able to get anything done during this current administration, and you're already asking the next administration to be able to do so when they just got the keys to be able to start the transition. Terrence, what say you?
Again, it's necessary. We know that these businesses and states, everyone right now needs this money, right, to stay solvent, so they don't go solvent. It's unfortunate, again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, that we're not being more proactive in doing these things and understanding what this actually can happen, what's going to happen, and that we may not even get a decision for the next 6 weeks until we get into the new year while people are suffering. So it's the right ask. Unfortunately, you just got the keys.
So I'll say it. This makes me angry. This makes me angry. We have to wait until January 20th to help Americans who are literally dying every day, who don't know where their meals are coming because of this virus. It makes me ill that we can't do this right now. And that folks, while this is wonderful, we're asking the new administration to finally act and do something. Right now we're in December. We need to have acted 6 months ago. We need to act now. And while this is wonderful, there's plans. Biden's team has a COVID transition team already up and ready to go day of. We need this right now. And it is, I'll say it, it disgusts me that we have to wait 6 weeks to figure out if people can eat and save their homes. It makes me ill.
Yeah, there's 43 attorney generals around the country
Yes.
that are asking for this, and it seems like Congress really hasn't moved the needle on getting anything done in the short term. Next up, Maryland Teachers Union asked the state for clarity on school closures.
Yeah, you're looking right at me. Yeah. So here's the deal. I think it's. I think we haven't made, the state, whomever, has not made the right decisions with the right amount of time. Teachers need time to plan.
Yes.
We can't throw them into an online environment and then 2 weeks later say, hey, just kidding, we're going to put you in front of a classroom, or hey, just kidding, we're going to do both. That's a really tough ball to throw, basically. And I think what this means is we don't know what you want. We don't know what the future is going to hold. We're doing our best, we teachers, to prepare for our students and for ourselves and our family. What are we doing here? Where are we going? And please give us better direction with more time to prepare and just make a darn decision. Let's go. That's what I see in this report.
And it looks like at a news conference, Governor Hogan was suggesting or pushing local districts to start in-person learning before the end of the year.
We're closing bars at 10 o'clock at night, right? So I'm confused by that as well.
Yeah.
That was the big push back in September that we looked at, come up with a plan. I think that was a little premature, not knowing what we kept talking about. We don't know what's going to happen in November. We don't know. Now we're in November, but we were making decisions in September like we knew what was going to happen in November. So it was premature to send the kids back to school. That may be contributing right now to some of the spikes that we're seeing right now as well. But teachers are on the front line. The teachers are the ones that speak to the kids, that speak to the parents. They're already asking to do a job that they're not contracted to do, to be remote. At least you can do is provide them with the resources of some kind of certainty of know what to do and to be able to plan.
Yeah. Okay, we've beat COVID to death, haven't we?
I mean, a little bit.
Let's go to weird news.
Always.
Japan puts its post-COVID tourism hopes in the hands of a giant robot. I'll just say this. I think it's smart that obviously we have to protect our citizens from COVID, but we do have to start thinking about what the world is going to be like coming out of COVID and how we're going to rebuild economies. So I applaud them for this effort. Andy.
Yeah, I mean, you want to think outside the box, and this seems to be great for Japanese culture, then do it. Go for it. That's wonderful. At least they're not doing the same things that aren't going to work within COVID. I agree with you. If this is what brings tourism up and it's fairly safe, okay, great. Make it happen. I think what this says is we can't do the same thing that we've been doing over and over again. We're going to think outside the box, and even if it fails, hey, man, at least we figured something out. We're taking that initiative. We're moving forward. Go Japan.
You can't go wrong with robots,
Yeah,
first
right.
of all, right?
Well,
I'm saying,
the Terminator tells you differently. Let's look
but
at
still, it's a
sci-fi
great movie franchise. You know what I'm saying? Robots always add a little flair. But no, I agree. I think one of the things that's holding us back right now is trying to wait for normalcy to come back. I think we have to start thinking forward. We have to be innovative. We have to think outside the box. These are unprecedented times, so it's going to take some great innovation for us to move forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And robots help.
Yes.
Always. Robots can go bad too. I'm just saying, I've seen too many movies.
But it's still good when they go bad.
Yeah, that's a good plot. You're fine.
All right, last up. Thawed out iguana attacks a Florida man trying to eat them. Crashes into a car. I didn't know anything about iguanas, and I didn't know that they were called the chicken of the trees. Terrence, I'm going to come to you first on
Yeah,
this.
you are.
First of all, I don't like to fight with my food. Like, I have trouble with crabs right now because it's too much work. Let alone I got to physically fight my food on the ride home. This is one of those interesting, funny stories. Because the temperature dropped, they would pretty much go into a coma. And he put these iguanas in his car and
Warmed
turned
them
the
up.
heat on. He was cooking them as he was going home. It's funny to laugh at some of these things, and safely he made it, so he didn't die. But you know, price you pay for, I guess, exotic cuisine.
You know, of course it's Florida. So I wanted to know if this was like a farmer's insurance commercial where they're like, we've seen it all, we've done it all. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that if you're going to exotically catch your food and put it in a car, and this article that we were sent said that there were dozens, I think, of iguanas. I don't put a dozen dogs in my I don't put a dozen chickens in my car. I'm not quite sure where this man's head was at, besides I'm hungry. And this is wild to me. I just want to know if his insurance company covered the accident or not, and then what happened to the iguanas. I'm an animal lover.
Now, have either one of you had iguana before?
No.
No.
Alligator, but not iguana.
So iguana with hot sauce or without?
Mambo sauce, come on now.
With hot sauce or without?
Deep fried and battered.
He likes fair food. On a stick, Terrence? Is it on a
On a
stick?
stick, iguana on a stick.
I know what I'm buying you for Christmas, my friend.
All right, well, that is it for Fast Five, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. County commissioners make changes to some local salaries. Terrence, what say you?
Of course, this is that time of the year. You look at it, and we talk about cost of living is about 2.2% across the board. So it's about time to evaluate some of these salaries. How we kind of shook out. A little head scratcher in some of the people who got increases or will be impacted by the increases, and those who didn't.
Well, let's kind of look at them one by one. With the county commissioners, their salary is between $38,000 and $39,000. Their increase, well, $38,000 and $39,000. The current president's salary is $41,000 to $42,000. They declined a salary increase, and then the sheriff, whose salary is $110,000. It was recommended that it is moved up to $126,600, and it looks like that pay raise is going to take effect. Andy.
Yeah, well, of course they froze their own salary. We're coming up to soon, in the next couple of years, in election years. And of course, I think that's for the next commission, right? So their stuff doesn't change now. They're just not giving whoever wins that raise. And that's a neither here nor there. And I agree that law enforcement has a tough job in this county, in this world, and I understand that. I get that. I do. But I think that's a big jump. I think it went from 110 to 126.
Yes.
And then I see other commissions and other, like Board of Education. They got a modest jump there. And there's a difference between being, I think, a commissioner and then someone putting their life on the line. And I understand that. What I don't understand from this article, and what I don't understand, is exactly how this equates with the rest of the county. And I think there's a lot of data missing here. I think it needs a bigger study. I think we need to figure out how we determine these salaries, what they're really worth, get an HR professional in here to really figure that out. I'm confused by this, and I'm a county paying tax person, you know, that lives here. And I think I need more information to figure out how equitable this really is and what that really means. But yeah.
And looking at this, Terrence, is there anything else that jumps out at you?
Again, you know, when there's been a lot of conversation about how money is spent and how money is spent on law enforcement, it's one of those things that may make some people uncomfortable. Seeing that the only salary increase across the board here came to the sheriff's department, and because the sheriff gets an increase in salary, I think it's on the table that state's attorney's office gets 90%.
Great point.
And then the district court judges get another 90% of what that salary is. So you bump their salary across the board. So even that large bump just to the sheriff helped a lot of people make a lot more money in these current times. So to read in here that they felt that it wasn't the right time to make some decisions on education, on the Board of Education and other areas because of the current environment, but to throw so much money into law enforcement right now, it's unsettling without a true understanding or explanation of why that happened. So
Yeah, because 16,000 in this economic environment
I'd
is
love a $16,000 bump right now. Mount St. Mary's, if you're listening, but no, truly, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's a huge amount in comparison. What is that, about a little more than 10%? So then you have like, even like the liquor board, and I get it, they're very different jobs, but there is a proposed like $1,000 increase. That's less than $100 a month. I mean, I don't understand it, and I'm not saying that it's wrong or there's something nefarious going on, but I feel like it's a huge gap, and I think you're right. If we're raising the sheriff's salary, then oh my goodness, what's happening to everybody else? It's connected, and I think that's the part I'm having a hard time reconciling.
Yeah, and I think if we look at it just from the county, the median income in Washington County is about
Right.
$59,007.
That's right.
As of 2018. So that's quite a jump in pay scale above and where everyone else is sitting stagnant right now. So I agree with you. I believe there's some data and some things missing in regards to that. And in this economic environment, I'm not sure that's the right way to go.
right, and also called out that the sheriff has individuals working under him, employees who are making less money than him, which that's unfortunate, but. Again, they also call out the sheriff is an elected position.
That's right.
So you ran for sheriff because you wanted to serve, not because of the compensation. So I think I think again, reading this is in a vacuum. So I would like to hear holistically how this played out in these decision making. But with this article as a standalone and being communicated the way it is to the community now, it may ruffle some feathers.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And again, it's that over 10% jump. That, I mean, I'd love a 10% jump. It's a little unprecedented when we're cutting back so much because of COVID and what we're doing. I don't understand the theory behind it, and I think that anybody living in Washington County should be able to get by at $110,000.
Yeah, and the thing is that, and if there are budget cuts that are coming down the line and you possibly need to lay off employees, it's kind of hard to explain such an increase where, you may have to eliminate positions in different places within our county government.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'd be curious to see what that budget's going to look like in the next couple months or two.
Yeah. Anything else stick out to you guys in regards to this? We had the liquor board. We also had the orphans court that was on the list, and then the treasurer's salary.
I'm surprised that the treasurer only makes $90,000 a year, to be honest. I would think that there would be some pretty intense training, academia behind that position. I believe it's a full-time position. I may be wrong in that, where I was a little surprised by that. I know I can't get a CPA for under how much an hour, so I would love somebody really well qualified, and I'm not saying our treasurer isn't, but I think one should be paid appropriately too. I'm not advocating for a $16,000 pay raise to the treasurer, but I was surprised that we have a sheriff at $126,000 and a treasurer at under $100K for a county this big.
I'll give you the last word on that, Andy, so thank you much. That is all the time we have tonight. We hope that you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and send us your comments to the FlipSide, feedback at theflipsidetv.com.